When a man sees that you've moved on peacefully, the first thing that gets hit isn't always his heart, it's his ego. And that may sound harsh, but it's real. Because for a lot of guys, especially ones who walked away thinking they had the upper hand, your reaction, or lack of one, is the part they were counting on. They expected resistance, emotional turbulence, maybe even some late-night texts or a sudden outpouring of feelings. But when all they're met with is silence, calm, composed, grounded silence, it shakes them deeply. See, ego doesn't feed off chaos. It feeds off significance. And in a lot of relationships, even when things end, that ego wants to feel like it still matters, like it still has a grip on your mind, on your heart. But when you don't fight to prove a point, don't scramble to be understood, don't launch into explanations or try to win him back, you're telling a very different story. You're telling the story of someone who has already let go internally, someone who doesn't need external closure to validate her decision, someone who isn't waiting for a reaction to feel seen or heard. That's a woman standing in her power. And that power is terrifying to a man who expected to still matter. He may not even be able to articulate it to himself, but something inside him will shift. Because this isn't the narrative he told himself about how you'd behave. He thought you'd spiral. He thought you'd chase or cry or collapse, not evolve, not rise. And when you do, without the drama, it leaves him with a haunting kind of silence, the kind that says, she's really done. It's interesting, in the moment, he might not admit to any of this. He might play it cool, act unbothered, even pretend he's happy you're doing well. But internally, there's a recalibration happening because your peace sends a message. You weren't waiting for him to come back. You weren't dependent on his approval to start living again. You took the hit, processed the pain, and came out the other side stronger. And more than that, lighter. There's something so disarming about a woman who isn't bitter. When you're angry or hurt, it still shows you care, and there's still an emotional tether there, a chance, a hook. But peace is different. Peace is quiet confidence. It says, I've made peace not just with you, but with the version of me who tolerated less than I deserved. That version of you no longer needs to justify anything to anyone, especially not him. And don't get it twisted. This doesn't mean he's sitting around crying or filled with regret every moment of the day. People process in different ways. But somewhere in those quiet moments, maybe late at night, or when a song plays that used to remind him of you, or when someone asks him why you two ended, he'll feel it. That sting of knowing he no longer has access to the woman he thought he'd always be able to come back to. That chapter's closed. And it wasn't ripped out or burned in rage. It was gently turned over with grace. You see, peaceful moving on is one of the most underrated forms of power. It doesn't shout. It doesn't post long captions about growth or healing. It just lives. It breathes. It radiates in how you show up in your life, in the way you laugh again, in the way you start doing things that make you feel alive, in the way you stop checking who's watching your story because you're not performing anymore, you're just living. And the man who once thought he was the center of your world is now watching from the sidelines as a spectator. And here's the beautiful part. You didn't do any of it for him. That peace wasn't a strategy. It wasn't a way to get a reaction. It wasn't a test. It was earned through nights you cried, through moments you doubted yourself, through the days you had to remind yourself of your worth. That peace is the result of doing the work, not just to move on from him, but to move back to you. That's the part he doesn't see, the inner rewiring, the rebuilding of self-esteem, the unlearning of patterns that no longer serve you. All he sees now is the end result. A woman he once had, now completely out of reach. And that's what stings, because deep down, he knows that any door he tries to reopen now will lead to a different room. a different woman, one he no longer knows how to access. So yeah, when you move on with peace, it doesn't just rattle him, it rewrites the story because he expected chaos, he expected drama, he expected to be the part of your story that left you broken, but instead he became the chapter that woke you up. And nothing haunts a man more than realizing he was the lesson, not the destination. You know what's interesting? When a woman moves on peacefully, without trying to prove a point, without the need to show how happy she is or make a statement, something very real happens on the other side. He starts questioning his value. And this isn't about arrogance or narcissism. It's human. When you're no longer trying to get his attention, when you're not chasing answers, not trying to rewrite the ending, something shifts. He begins to feel a kind of emptiness where once there was importance. Because whether he realized it or not, there was a part of him that fed off knowing you cared. That even in your silence, even in your distance, he was somewhere in your heart, and that gave him a sense of power. And that gave him a sense of power. It gave him comfort. But when that disappears, when he no longer feels that gravitational pull from you, he's forced to face a mirror that asks, was I really that valuable? Was I truly the person I believed I was in her life? See, a lot of people don't understand this. It's not your anger or heartbreak that hits hardest. It's your absence. It's the moment you stop orbiting their world. Because when someone knows they can still trigger a reaction, there's still a thread of control. But when that thread is cut, when you're no longer emotionally tethered to them, it creates a void. And in that void, reflection begins. He might start replaying conversations, moments where he dismissed you, times you reached out and he met you with indifference. He begins to realize the weight of what you were offering. And ironically, it's not while he has your attention, it's in the silence after it's gone that he finally sees the value of what he overlooked. You didn't leave in rage. You didn't burn bridges. You didn't scream about how wrong. Vols or post-dramatic quotes online, hoping he'd see them. You left with stillness. And that stillness speaks volumes. Because people expect pain to look loud. They expect devastation. But when you show peace instead of pain, it's disorienting. It doesn't fit the narrative he had in his head about how this would go. Maybe he thought you'd always be there, that even if things fell apart, you'd come back eventually, that he could find you in the same emotional space if he ever decided to look. But instead, you healed. Quietly, you stopped trying to be understood and instead chose to understand yourself. That kind of evolution doesn't just confuse a man, it humbles him, because it makes him realize that his value in your life was not unconditional, that it wasn't just about who he was, but how he showed up. And now that you've moved on, not out of anger, but out of clarity, he's left wondering, did I ever really measure up? Did I take her for granted? And the truth is, he may never say any of this out loud. He might never admit to anyone, not even himself, that he's questioning his worth in the aftermath of your peace. But it's there. It shows up in his late night thoughts. It lingers in the silence when he checks your page and sees your smile. It's in that deep pause he takes when someone brings up your name, and for a split second, he feels that ache in his chest, the one that says, I let something extraordinary go. He realizes you didn't move on to make him jealous. You moved on because you reached a place of emotional truth, a place where you didn't need his approval to feel whole. That self-worth you found, that's what stings the most. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you finally did what was right for you. And he knows somewhere inside that if he had stepped up, if he had truly seen you, things might have been different. But now, watching you grow, evolve, glow, it brings up a fear he didn't expect, that he wasn't the person he thought he was in your life. And that's where the real questioning begins. Because here's the irony, you were never trying to make him feel less. You were just trying to love him right. That in the end, your peace became the greatest revelation, not just for you, but for him too. And now he has to live with the silence that tells him exactly what he meant. You know, one of the most powerful things that can happen when you've peacefully moved on is this. He starts to notice what he missed. And the thing is, it often doesn't hit him right away. It might not even sink in immediately. But when it does, it's like a wave crashing down. Let's be real for a moment. Sometimes it takes distance. Sometimes it takes time for him to truly see the version of you he no longer has access to. When you've moved on, and you've done so peacefully, you become this version of yourself that he doesn't recognize as easily. You might have grown, you might have healed, and you might just be carrying yourself in a way that shows the world and him that you're better, you're stronger, you're not waiting for anything or anyone to complete you. That peaceful, confident aura you now have, it's magnetic. It's the kind of energy that can't be ignored, even if he tries. And it's in those moments of seeing you from a distance, whether it's through a friend, through social media, or even just the occasional cross in the street, he's hit with a realization that's hard to swallow. What I had, I let go of. And not only that, but you've become something he now admires from afar, something he never fully appreciated when he had it right in front of him. Think about it. When you were in the relationship, there was probably a version of him who thought, she'll always be there. I've got time. I can figure it out later. It's like that feeling of taking someone for granted when you think they're going to stick around forever. But here's the thing. Life doesn't work that way. And once you've moved on, there's no going back. And he starts to feel it. Now, I'm not saying that he's desperate for you, but what happens is this. He starts seeing you in a different light. It's almost as if you've leveled up and he missed the memo. The attention, the care, the joy that used to be directed at him is now channeled elsewhere into your passions, your life, your growth. He sees that, and it's like a mirror reflecting back at him, a mirror showing him how he missed the opportunity to truly appreciate you when he had the chance. And that realization is painful, but it's also so powerful because he's forced to sit with this question. Why didn't I see this before? The peace you found without him doesn't just show him that you're doing okay. It shows him that you're thriving. And let's be clear here. This isn't about seeking his approval. This is about your journey, your growth, your peace. But when he sees that you're glowing, that you're moving forward without hesitation, it serves as a reminder of what he once had and let slip through his fingers. That's the part that stings. That's the part that makes him question everything he thought he knew. The truth is, when you've healed and moved on, you give off a light that others notice, and that includes him. It's a subtle shift, but it's significant. It's the kind of light that makes people, especially someone who once had your heart, wonder if they missed the best part of you. Here's the kicker. As he starts to reflect on the past, he might even begin to respect you more. It's a quiet kind of respect. The kind that doesn't need to be vocalized or confirmed. It's the type of respect that only comes from seeing someone move through their pain with dignity, grace, and poise. And while he may not ever admit it to you, that's the kind of respect that lingers. There's a subtle beauty in moving on peacefully. It's not about making a scene. It's not about proving a point. It's about living your life in a way that shows you don't need anyone to complete you. You're already complete. When you carry yourself with that quiet confidence, with that peace, you become a force to be reckoned with. And trust me, he's noticing. He's seeing it now in a way he never did before. When you let go of the past and step into the future with calm and confidence, you create space for your own evolution. And sometimes it takes that peaceful distance for him to realize that the person he let go of was everything he needed. He can't get that back. And that's a hard pill to swallow. when you stop reacting to him, stop reaching out, stop over-explaining yourself or proving your worth. Something shifts profoundly. You take the power back. And whether he acknowledges it or not, he feels it immediately. There's this moment, subtle but sharp, where he realizes that the grip he had on your emotions is gone. Not because you found someone new, not because you're angry, but because you're done, truly done. And there's nothing louder than the silence of someone who's found peace. See, when we're emotionally invested, especially in someone who may not have fully appreciated our presence, we often give too much. We respond to their mixed signals. We stay in conversations that go nowhere. We let them back in even after we've said goodbye because some part of us still hopes, still clings, still thinks that maybe, just maybe they'll come around. And when a man sees that in you, that you still care, still want him, even if he's not ready to reciprocate, there's comfort in that, control, power even. It's not malicious, it's human. We all feel a sense of safety knowing someone is emotionally tethered to us, even when we don't return the debt. But then something remarkable happens. One day, the energy changes. You stop waiting for him to text back. You stop analyzing what he meant when he said that one thing. You stop giving your attention to someone who's not giving you consistency. And you don't announce it. You don't make a dramatic exit. You just choose you quietly, fully, and unapologetically. That right there is when the dynamic flips. You're no longer playing the game. You've stepped out of it completely, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you realize you don't need to. Your peace became more valuable than his validation. And that is when he starts to feel powerless, not because you hurt him, but because you're no longer giving him the option to hurt you. It's not even about moving on with someone else. That's a common misconception, that the only way to regain power is to find someone new. No, the most powerful move is when you make yourself the center of your own life again. You reinvest in your growth, your health, your purpose. You reconnect with the things that light you up, the friendships, the creativity, the joy, all the things you may have put on the back burner for someone who couldn't meet you where you were. And here's the thing, he notices. Oh, he absolutely notices. Even if he doesn't say anything, he sees it. Maybe it's the way you carry yourself differently, how your smile seems lighter, how you're no longer subtly watching your phone when he's around. Maybe it's how you don't post cryptic messages anymore, or how you stopped liking his stories. There's no bitterness, no cold shoulder, just a calm indifference that says, I'm okay without you. And that unsettles him. Because he used to have influence over your emotions. He used to be able to make your day or break it, depending on whether he gave you attention. And now, that power is gone. Not stolen, not taken forcefully, just released. You let it go. And with it, you reclaimed a version of yourself that doesn't orbit around anyone else's approval. It makes him reflect, sometimes even obsess. He starts wondering what happened. Why isn't she reacting? Why isn't she chasing? Who is she becoming now? That mystery, that shift in energy is often more powerful than any message you could send because it tells him everything he needs to know. You've moved on emotionally, not with anger, but with peace. And here's the deeper truth. When you walk away with peace, you become unforgettable. Not because you caused drama or chaos, but because you didn't. Because you had every opportunity to get pulled into the emotional tug of war, and instead you chose grace. That's not just strength, that's rare. And he'll feel that absence long after you're gone. Because when a man realizes he no longer has access to the version of you that gave him so much love, attention, and emotional depth, that access he once took for granted, he's left with a void, a silence, a reminder of what he had when he wasn't ready for it. That's the power of choosing peace over performance. When you stop trying to be understood and instead focus on understanding yourself, you become magnetic in a way no amount of trying ever could replicate. And that's when he knows you've truly moved on. And he can't do anything about it. He wonders who has your attention now. And that thought, it doesn't just pass through his mind once, it lingers. It starts as a casual curiosity, but then it begins to grow. You see, when someone sees that you've genuinely moved on, not with loud declarations or petty rebounds, but with quiet peace, they suddenly realize that their access to your world has been revoked. And that's a strange feeling for someone who once felt so central to your life. Now, every silence becomes a question mark. Every photo of you smiling is seen through the lens of who made her laugh like that. It's not always conscious. It's not always something he admits to himself, let alone to anyone else. But there's a tension there, a gnawing sense of being replaced, or worse, of being forgotten. What really gets under his skin isn't just the idea that you might be with someone new. It's the realization that someone else might now be experiencing the version of you he didn't value when he had the chance. The you who's leveled up. The you who's more self-aware, more loving to yourself, more at ease. That version of you in someone else's arms is a version he never truly met. And yet now, someone else might get all the things he took for granted. It's not just jealousy, it's the loss of privilege. The privilege of